This video will cover the instructions for the lab using regular expressions to validate form data. The purpose of the lab is to properly validate the information coming from a new member's sign-up form. Validation is extremely critical when developing a website. Improperly validated data, which is collected from a form, can corrupt your database and also can pose an extreme security risk. This lab will show you how to integrate regular expressions into the validation process. The steps include testing your form posting. We will review the addMember.php file. Inside that, there's a form which collects information from potential new members. We need to modify the form tag where the action will be addMember.php and the method will be post. We will then observe that when you post the data, the information goes into a key called data, which is under $_post. From the browser, we will then open up the file, fill in some data, and click Submit. You will then note where the data appears. The next step then is to modify the form to redisplay the data. The way this can be done is by taking the data from $_post, the data key, and assigning that to a variable $post. We will also need to set defaults just in case it's the first time through. We will then modify the input tags to add information in the value portion of the input tag where we are going to echo the value of $data. We will then substitute for a key the field that corresponds to the form. Again, we will fill in some test data and then observe that the data in the form is now retained. The next step involves adding a filter to the data. This is necessary because it is quite possible that a malicious user could add unwanted HTML tags or even JavaScript to the form data with potentially disastrous results. Accordingly, we'll take the $data array through a loop and use strip tags to filter out each value. Now comes the validation portion. In order to properly validate the data, we need to examine each input element and determine the nature of the data. We will then need to design a regular expression pattern which matches each individual element. After the for each loop, which we used for filtering purposes, we will add a series of if statements which will match each element using PREGmatch to check to see if the element matches the pattern. If the validation fails, we will add an error message to an array $errors. We will then echo the $error message after each input element if an error has occurred. To test, we will enter both good and bad values in order to see if our validation pattern was successful. Finally, a little bit of cleanup. We need to add the addMembers.php file to the rest of the website, which means updating the links on the various pages. This concludes our discussion of the instructions to the lab using regular expressions to validate form data.